postseason. I mean, that's the goal of every coach that coaches. Is we were sitting in a good spot going into the season. You got to win to stay there.
Live from GiGi's Burger Bar on 9th Street in downtown Coffeyville, it's the Red Ravens Coaches Show with the voice of the Red Ravens, Shea Neal, and head coach Jeff Leiker. The Red Ravens Coaches Show brought to you by the David W. Barnes Funeral Home and GiGi's Burger Bar. Now from GiGi's Burger Bar, the Red Ravens Coaches Show on the mighty 690 KGGF.
Good evening and welcome to GiGi's Burger Bar here in Coffeyville. It's our Red Raven Coaches Show. And we're joined, of course, as always, by head coach of Red Raven football, Jeff Leiker. Coach Leiker, thanks so much for being here. How you doing? Good. Great. Excited to have you here. And we got a great show, of course, recapping the game against Dodge, the home opener, and getting ready for a Montgomery County showdown against Independence this week. Always a fun one. But, Coach, let's get started with your team. The first thing I noticed against Dodge, and I'm sure you noticed something similar, was I thought your offensive line, for the most part, was very strong against Highland. I thought it was one of the strengths of the team, especially in that second half when the run game got going. Now, after halftime against Dodge, felt like they took a little bit of a step back, some pre-snap penalties, some allowing some consistent pressure in the backfield. So what has been kind of the focus on getting that offensive line right for Independence?
Well, that's a big key for any offense, is the offensive line, and ours is no different. We've got 5 brand new guys up there. We put a lot of expectations on them, a lot of faith in them, but they have to go out and perform. And that's something that we're disappointed in the overall play of our football team, just not putting enough points on the board, not sustaining us offensively.
Coach, one of the bright spots, I should say, in that game against Dodge was, of course, after an up and down week one, the great play of Jabari Tiller, your sophomore corner, of course, made some big stops, made a big tackle on a third down that got you the ball back late. Also had, of course, the pick six. Jabari seemed to really be comfortable. Really, your whole secondary. Adrian Patterson had a great night as well. I believe he had 8 or 9 tackles. So I know we talked about this being the most experienced group on your football team, and they really showed up and displayed that on Saturday against Dodge.
You know, Tiller's a good football player. Adrian was a backup last year. We kind of made a comment about him making all those tackles that shouldn't be getting to the secondary to keep everything else correct. So we still got some issues on that side. But, everybody's going to come out and play their very best, and we're going to do everybody's best. We're a young team, haven't got much experience as far as them ball games, so we've got to overcome a lot of things in order to go out and play well. And so far we're willing to try. It's disappointing. Highly based on how we ended the year. We're all excited about it. I really felt like we would be better at this point. So our work's cut out for us to try to get it out of these players. And I've been around a long time and have been through a lot of years where maybe we had quite the talent. Right now, I think we're talented enough, just shooting ourselves in the foot, or get the game back to 3 points and hold up on 3rd and long, or something that allows another first down or a longer play. So it's not just one thing, but it's a variety of things on a young team that you keep plugging away to see if we can't get corrected.
And Coach, that's something I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's something I talked to Brad Weber about. Is it feels like, like you said, this football team has the talent. This football team just 1 or 2, flips of the switch away from kind of turning this start to the season around. And I think in a way that's encouraging, because it's not a talent issue, an execution issue, but at the same time, I'm sure that's frustrating for you, where it's not you're getting beat on the field, it's almost you're beating yourself on the field.
Well, we have a touchdown the first weekend called back because we don't line up correctly. Then we drop a touchdown pass, so we lose by 6. With all the things that happened to us in week 1, we should have found a way to win that game. Week 2, I thought Dodge has got a pretty decent club. They played Iowa Western to a 7-point game. Low scoring, 6-3 at half. They got out on us a little bit in the second half, and Tiller made a big play to get us back in the game. And so we were just 1 score down quite a bit in the 4th quarter. We didn't put anything together until we finally finally gave up one more touch on the defensive side for them to have a little bit of breathing room. But that's about us just not doing what we need to do to put pressure on the other team. I could say the other team did a good job, and that's probably what I ought to say, but still, when you go out there every day and you have had success and you see it, you expect that, even though it's new guys, So every year we got to go out and recruit guys that we think can do it. And then, but everybody else is practicing the same way. And so, the opening 3 ball games this year are based off of how they were seeded, how we finished the season last year. Highland was 7, Dodge was 6, Indy was 5, based on how the year ended. We're not going to get that schedule again, and we haven't taken advantage of being a 2 seed and a ranked team. We're just going to keep fighting ourselves to try to make some progress and find a way to do enough to win a ball game.
Coach, one of the, and it's our Red Raven Coaches Show live from GiGi's Burger Bar here in Coffeyville. We appreciate GiGi's being the host site for this. But, Coach, one of the most interesting things for me about Dodge was in Week 1 against Iowa Western, they nearly completely 50-50 split snaps with 2 different quarterbacks. They had Trayvon Jefferson, who you saw, and then they had another quarterback. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But they split nearly 50-50. One had 17 attempts, one had 15 attempts. In Week 2, they stuck with Jefferson the whole game. And other than that pick 6, I thought he was pretty impressive. What were your thoughts on him, and what did he do that made it difficult for your defense?
Well, he got the ball out quick. I mean, as soon as he got a snap, he had a read and threw it right away. Couldn't get to him enough. And when he did scramble, he seemed like he split us, and there was somebody downfield still that was getting themselves free for a little bit longer gains. That was the 3rd down and long stuff. We couldn't get ourselves off the field. So I think the Jefferson really did a good job. He had one turnover on the pick and then kind of a late turnover on a fumble. I don't know if it was the exchange with the running back, but really wasn't just well executed to put the ball on the ground for us to get a chance to get it back. I think it was a 9 or 10 point lead. I can't remember what the final deal was, but we only had one more possession to try to do something. But I thought they played very well, very sound football. They didn't do a whole lot to try to confuse you. They just played physical football. And that's what our guys have got to rise up and be ready to play physical football. Didn't get it done near enough. Scoring 14 and 10 is not going to win many ball games.
Coach, one of the things that I thought, one of the positive takeaways from this, of course, we talked a little bit last week about how Dodge was bringing an experienced offensive line, a lot of sophomores, a lot of returners on that offensive side of the football. And for the most part, I thought they did a pretty good job protecting Jefferson in that game. But a guy that really did have a big game, especially in the second half, was Kyle Bryant for you. Ended up with 2.5 sacks, 4 tackles, and after seeing, Lampton in Week 1, we saw Bryant in Week 2. It has to, there's some sort of silver lining to pull out of this 2-game stretch at the start of the season. It seems like you have a couple guys that are stepping up to some nice quality pass rushers.
Well, we need them to as well. I mean, they're a couple of fellows that are in our program. The rest of them are pretty much youngsters, so we're giving them a lot of chances, a lot of good chances to stay fresh. But on football, it's 11. You got to have all 11 jobs. We have 1 or 2 breakdowns somewhere. Usually the other team finds it, and so we're still pleased with some of the play. I mean, it's 90% of the time the guys have done everything they need to do. Those 3 or 4 snaps and get scores on you, and they never really drove it all the way down the field. They got a catch and run of about 40 yards. Just got us in the backfield peeking and going over the top and stuff like that. So they're a little bit more bigger plays than what we want to give up. But we're still trying to pull the most out of all the kids we've got, and we'll see if we can again the next week give us a chance to go out and play well enough to win. Yeah,
and I'm glad you mentioned that. Last thing we'll talk about with Dodge before we get into your group, and of course the matchup coming up with Independence. 3 of those touchdowns, all 3 touchdowns that Jefferson threw were, I believe, 30-plus yards, and then the late touchdown by Gavin Stone was also a 20-plus yarder. So I think at least 2 of those 3 passing touchdowns, it was a play where it almost was covered initially, and then he extended the play, which of course that's a talented football player, but he extended the play and then made the play. So what I'm not necessarily telling you, it's hard to tell your defense to cover for 5, 6 seconds where the edge rushers have to do. But at the same time, looking ahead to Independence and, of course, Cincinnati after the bye week, how do you prevent some of those big plays? Because that's really where Dodge City hurt your defense. Yeah,
we didn't get enough of the pass rush to get him down. That without having blitz. If you have blitz all the time, you get sacks and pressure. It's going to be tough. You miss one tackle in there. There's a lot of green grass. It's hard for the secondary to cover that long, and we didn't very well. And then the last one they got to run, they kind of just ran it right down the throat and drive. I don't know if our guys just we were expecting them to put up a little bit more of a battle, but it seemed like all we're doing is just continuing to try to pull it out of them, at this point. And they're frustrated. They've all the talk about, being where they you got to go now. Somebody puts you up a little higher. Right now, this group really be able to handle it.
Red Ravens, of course, will start preparing for the Independence Showdown battle for Montgomery County coming up this weekend. It's our Red Raven Coaches Show live from GiGi's Burger Bar with Coach Jeff Leiker. We're going to step away for 2 minutes. When we come back, we'll have more on the Red Ravens and their matchup coming up with Independence. Don't go anywhere. It's the mighty 690 KGGF.
When it comes to a time of loss, most folks around here trust and rely on David W. Barnes Funeral Home. It could be because of their compassionate care. It could be because of their superior service. Or maybe because of their fair, honest prices. Or just maybe for all those reasons. More people trust the David W. Barnes Funeral Home during a time of loss. The David W. Barnes Funeral Home, 306 North Klein in Coffeyville, an independent, family-owned business.
There's nothing like summer and nothing like Royals baseball.
In well, center field, Jones back, it's a goner, and the Royals win it! What a series. Every single game, right down to the wire, and then the Royals get a walk-off in the bottom of the ninth.
Catch the Kansas City Royals all season long with weeknight and weekend games on the mighty 690 KGGF and weekday daytime games on Sunshine 98.9 KQQF. Brought to you by Gillum Liquor, Skyward Credit Union, Roman Chevrolet, Roman's Outdoor Power, Great Plains Federal Credit Union, and Skyway Honda. The Royals host the White Sox again tonight. First pitch is at 6:40. Tune in for the pregame show at 6 o'clock tonight on the mighty 690 KGGF.
Does your business need radio communications facilities? KCD Towers has tower space available. They can meet your needs in Chautauqua, Montgomery, and Labette counties in southeast Kansas, and Osage, Washington, and Nowata counties in northeast Oklahoma, with expanded coverage across the area. Tower space for cellular or two-way communications? Let's talk. Call Kevin Potter, 918-336-1001, or go online to bartlesvilleradio.com and click on Rent Tower Space under the Contact tab. Start your communications outreach today.
Back here from GiGi's Burger Bar, it's our Red Raven Coaches Show here on the mighty 690, and I'm joined, of course, as always, by head coach Jeff Leiker. And Coach Leiker, enough talking about that Dodge game. I want to talk a little bit about your group before we get into this matchup with the Independence Pirates. And the first thing I noticed was, of course, in week one, we talked a little bit about the big run by O'Meary Wiggins, and we've also seen some great stuff from Rosario Smith. We saw a little bit of Trey Jones as well on Saturday against Dodge. So moving forward, I know you're a running back by committee kind of guy, but would you say that it's safe to say Smith and Wiggins are kind of splitting carries about 50-50, and then Jones is kind of your change of pace back? Is that pretty safe to say?
I'm not real sure if we've even got a real thought on who's in there for what. Faith in both those guys as well as Steve Jones as well. So I would expect any of them to go out there and do it. It's just a matter of
Coach, something that Matt and I talked about a little bit last week, and I don't think it's a controversial take. I think you'll agree with it. But I think one of the things that, has really kind of bit the team a little bit in the first 2 weeks of the season is coming out and not being able to take control of the game early, where, of course, in week one against Highland, you ended up having a chance to score the first points of the year, missed the kick. Last week, you have a great first drive of the game and end up with only a field goal. What do you have to do against Independence this week? Of course, there's some changes that need to be made. But what is kind of in your mindset what needs to be done to find the end zone and kind of get off to a really strong start?
The last weekend, Joe opportunities when early that we can try to play with the lead if we haven't been there yet. The first week at how you missed your kick last week. Ball in your hands, you got to go catch it. They're all trying so very hard. Nobody's ever trying to
right.
Concentration.
Of course. And Coach, something else you hinted at, never the ideal situation when a corner leads the team in tackles, like you mentioned earlier. But I have noticed that your secondary, some secondaries at any level of football really struggle to tackle in open space and really kind of shy away from those physical plays and to be cover guys, but your guys do a pretty nice job of when a guy does get to that level, they do a nice job of bringing him down. So you have to feel good about your guys' physicality. If it does get to that level, your secondary usually able to bring him down.
Well, we were pretty fortunate last year with Bishop and Amir, the two safeties we had. They kind of closed down everything, got to the level. And obviously with Bishop being the defensive player of the year, he did a lot of nice things in order to not let people get on past him. So those two safeties you got to replace. And, we've got some young ones that are trying to come out there and for those that had these guys this year are true freshmen. A couple of kids made it in red you're happy when those guys do get tackles made, but at the same time you want it to be stopped a little bit sooner.
Of course, Coach. Something that you're kind of trying to find any sort of spark, of course, when you get off to a start like this. And something I've noticed in the first 2 weeks of the year is you had some success at times on kickoff returns, where you had, of course, in Martavian Johnson in Week 1 against Highland, a couple good returns against Dodge as well. On special teams, it has not been a perfect year on special teams to this point, but you've had a couple returns where it sets you up at the 35, 40-yard line. That's something that you have to feel pretty good about, where you're getting pretty good field position at times.
We're getting really good field position and not getting anything out of it. And that's the definition that if you can't handle that, you're not going to win games. You can't go down and put points on the board and let your defense play knowing offense and good scores. You got to go put some points on them. A bit like we're all contributing. It's the kicking game. We work on it. It's always a vital thing. I forget sometimes when Boston was not forced. Our guys will eventually get early on when they've been called on. Sometimes they have to wait for break. When the lights come on, you got to be able to perform and make your kicks or make your punts or change the field. We haven't really had that quite as good as what we were able to have last year. Everybody goes through losing players and adding new guys to it, so we're just one of many that have had to put some new guys on the field.
Yeah, Coach, I'm glad you brought up the kicking game, because I thought in the second half especially, you did have some good punts that pinned them down inside the 10. Even one, I think, pinned them at the 4. But it started to feel like we kind of hinted at with your kick returns, you were winning the field position battle. You were starting at the 30, 35, 40-yard line, and you were pitting the opponent back inside the 20. So, at the end of the day, you have to think, if that continues, if that trend continues, eventually this offense is going to get some momentum. But if you keep winning the field position battle, it's only a matter of time before the switch flips.
That's what we're always expecting. I've been lucky enough to be on the better side all these years, but people that have been in the business a long time say you stay in this stuff long enough, eventually stuff like this kind of happens to you. I don't want to believe that, but here we are, so we just got to keep plugging away and trying to take advantage of opportunities that present themselves.
Coach, last thing before we focus on this matchup with the Pirates coming up this weekend, you've had a pair of interceptions in the first 2 games of the year, but they both come in the fourth quarter. Of course, the one late that gave you the ball with a chance to win against Highland, and then the pick 6 by Jabari. Both of those interceptions have felt like big momentum changes that have kind of pulled your team back within striking distance to potentially win that game, but they've come late in the game. And of course, this is a team and a program that thrives on takeaways on the defensive side of the ball. So moving into this matchup with the Pirates this weekend and for the rest of the season, what's the key to maybe getting that fumble recovery or that interception a little bit earlier in the game?
Just asking guys to continue to try to strip the ball, and we had deflected balls and should have had a pick 6 that first week too, off of getting their hands in the air, and we just get a little too excited, don't look at the ball in, and it goes right through our picnic basket. Opportunities have presented themselves, so take advantage of them and capitalize. Get another chance this Saturday night to be better.
A battle for Montgomery County coming up on Saturday night. We're going to step away for 2 minutes on our Red Raven Coaches Show. When we come back, we'll ask about how the team's getting ready for Independence coming up this weekend. It's our
It's a great time to be a Wildcat.
It's good! The Wildcats are champions of the Big 12!
The defending Big 12 champions hit the turf right here all season long. Join us Saturday as the Wildcats welcome the Troy Trojans to Bill Snyder Family Memorial Stadium on your home for Kansas State Wildcat football.
Join us for kickoff at 11 a.m. on Saturday. Kansas State Wildcat football on the mighty 690 KGGF is brought to you by Gillum Liquor, Community State Bank, Corner Post Insurance, Albemarle Builder Supply, Coffeyville Community College, and Roman Chevrolet. Your home for Wildcat football is the mighty 690 KGGF.
When it comes to a time of loss, most folks around here trust and rely on David W. Barnes Funeral Home. It could be because of their compassionate care. It could be because of their superior service. Or maybe because of their fair, honest prices. Or just maybe for all those reasons. More people trust the David W. Barnes Funeral Home during a time of loss. The David W. Barnes Funeral Home, 306 North Klein in Coffeyville, an independent, family-owned business.
Now, keeping up to date is easy, no matter where you are. Equity Bank brings you KGGF text alerts, severe weather, sports scores, breaking local news. They're all as close as your phone with KGGF text alerts. It's easy to sign up. Just go to kggfradio.com, follow the link for text alerts, and select your options. Keep up to date anytime, anywhere with KGGF text alerts powered by Equity Bank. There's nothing like summer and nothing
As we get ready for this matchup this weekend against the Independence Pirates. We're joined, of course, by Coach Jeff Leiker. Coach Leiker, my first thought about Independence is they've had a tale of 2 weeks so far this year. Of course, in week 1, not a great showing against Iowa Central, but they bounced back in week 2, looked fantastic against NEO. So your initial thoughts on this Pirates team, kind of how do you analyze them? Because it's really been a really not so great football team 1 week and then a really good football team in week 2.
Well, Iowa Central's a pretty good football team. That's evidenced by beating Garden in week 2. So they're now up to number 5. And they played that game at 10 o'clock in the morning. It was a really hot week we've all had to deal with. Iowa Central went out and did what they needed to do in that first game. And I think Indy made some nice adjustments to get ready for week 2 and came out and played really good defense first of all. They played good defense both weekends. That's what they've always made a living on, is really good D and trying to play the ground-oriented offense. Kind of the similar things I like to do is to keep your defense resting while you're controlling the football and wait for a break. breakaway somewhere. So we're going to have our hands full. I mean, they're going to come in with a lot of confidence, and and really a lot of this stuff too, Shea, with the rules over the last 5 years, where the out-of-state thing went from 12 to 20 to limited back to 55. Everybody's got a chance to be pretty good if you go out and find 55 kids from outside of the state to play for you. That's why it's been a little bit of a struggle for everybody to grab the good Kansas kids, because they're all looking at the Division II schools now because of the opportunities that they feel like they've got better at those levels if they get an offer. So everybody's got pretty good kids, where in the old days when it was 10 out-of-staters, 2 or 3 of the top teams would gather everybody, and then the rest of them were left to chase just guys, and sometimes that's what they had to play with. So now it's anybody's game, and the Indians had a really nice run since Last Chance U and the things that they've had going on there since 16.
Yeah, and Independence, of course, a program that really has a historically pretty strong defense. They have a few new cogs in the coaching staff this year. So how much do you anticipate kind of staying true to the Pirates' identity from years past, and how much do you think could be different this time around?
Well, Coach Donaldson has been there ever since 2016. Just a real good ball coach and fine gentleman. He still keeps the program intact over these years and really stresses a lot of defense. He was a head coach out in Southern California for high school football for a number of years, coaching junior college. So he's put a staff together. Those guys are finding ways to get the ball out of playmakers and playing great defense, a lot of blitzing, a lot of confusion with pressure. A lot of man cover, a lot of bump and run, and really force you to have to put the ball in the right spot. So it's not an easy defense to prepare for because of all the helter-skelter things that they kind of throw at you to try to make sure you're sound.
Yeah. Coach, you mentioned they blitz quite a bit on the defensive end, and with your offensive line allowing quite a bit of pressure in the second half against Dodge, do you envision maybe doing a little bit more of kind of chip blocking with a running back, or maybe having one of those tight ends help out in pass protection this week?
Well, anything we can do to give our QB a little bit more time, yeah. Somehow we really got to develop a ground game, and I think that helps a lot if we do the ground game. Run or pass, you don't know it's coming. But until we can establish a ground game, we've thrown I think way too many times, obviously, and not completely enough. So we've got challenges every week to try to get our kids to play better up front, to give the quarterback a little more time, and make sure he knows where to go with the ball too. That's the other piece.
Yeah. Coach, again, appreciate your time as always. Last thing I have, Brad Weber and I talked about this a little bit earlier this week. This isn't, I think most people that have watched this program know how important this game is. But, it almost feels like it's of course, the battle for Montgomery County, always a big game, always intense, always a fun rivalry. But this one feels a little bit extra important for your group because, the difference between winning this game and going into the bye with some confidence back and the weight off your shoulders of getting that first W is a completely different mindset than if you're 0-3 and thinking about that for 2 weeks before playing number 1 Hutch. So
no question.
This game's obviously very important.
Right. It's but you get 11 tries at this. You work your tail off 365 days out of the year to get 11 tries. And it doesn't make any sense to want to really do this sometimes when you think about other sports where you can play a lot more games. But, it's the football's I think the number 1 team sport out there just because of how many people you have to count on to be good. And national television and all the things that you see on college footballs is probably as exciting right now as it's ever been because of things like what Colorado did the other day. It's a deal where we just need something good to happen where we can get excited about it. Nobody's going to just lay down. No, they're going to make sure they like us being down. They like it not in the hunt, and we've been in there the last 2 years, and now we're having to find out the hole.
Live from GiGi's Burger Bar on 9th Street in downtown Coffeyville, you've been listening to the Red Ravens Coaches Show on the mighty 690 KGGF, brought to you by the David W. Barnes Funeral Home and GiGi's Burger Bar.
The Red Ravens
Radio Sports.